Hello, how's everybody doing?
Good.
How can I help you?
In terms of the physicality the defense has shown, just where do you feel that's at, and what's the tackling look like?
What's the tackling look like? Yeah, I would say from a physicality standpoint, that's just something we got to keep working every day. I think we've had, maybe this is our second full padded practice. We've had a couple practices in uppers, But it's, to me, I think I've said this before, but football's such a unique game in that you can practice, all off season, lift and train weights, but the contact aspect of this game and how it's being limited, by NCAA rules, and even when you're in the NFL, like the NFLPA, you can only have so many contact days, so you got to maximize those. So, we're working a lot of thud and just strong, thud tackles now, and eventually we'll get to some live to the ground stuff, but you got to have that balance of maximizing the physicality of your whole team, but our defense, but at the same time keeping everybody healthy. So I think it's a work in progress.
Coach, when you build a defense, what's the right number of players to kind of rotate into a game and kind of try to build a lineup?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as many good players as you have, right? So, the defensive line rotates. We try to rotate as many people as we can. I don't think there's a set number, but I think you'd like to be like at least 3 deep at corner and then 2 deep at each safety position, kind of have a rotational aspect of your D-line. So I don't have like a number in my head as far as like a whole number, but you've obviously got to have backups and then backups to those backups, which we, like in today's practice, we repped a lot of those younger players trying to get them up to speed and get them up to the standard. So I think, depth is huge, but as far as the number, I can't really maybe give you that.
On that subject, John, you guys were able to rely last year up front on Ty and Nash to play a ton of snaps. How do you feel about the frontline guys you have this year in those positions, and how they can hold up if they need to do something similar? And then also, what does the depth look like?
Yeah, I think our D-line is heading in the right direction. Terry's doing a great job with Coach Phil as well, just getting those guys ready. Obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that Nash and Ty are one type of players, and the guys we have are their own style and they have their own strengths, and that's our job as coaches, is to maximize their value based on their skill set within our scheme. So we're young there, but I'm encouraged that those guys are developing. Made some impact plays out there today, both in the run game and the pass game. This is a process and development program, so everybody is going to keep getting better every single day. The D-line specifically, and we all know to be good on defense, you got to have a good D-line. So that's what we're going to keep working towards.
Do you talk to those guys at all, John, about the narrative? The kind of
no. I would say no. We don't I don't want to interrupt you. I apologize, but we don't care what anybody else says outside of this building. We really don't even address that there is a narrative. Now, we're not fools. We realize that these kids, they're on social media and they have people in their ears, but our message to them is constantly about what we do on a daily basis, detailing and kind of highlighting their performance and then their development and improvement, so they can see it as they're getting better, where they were here and where they are now, and then where they obviously need to be. But, what the outside says about any of us really doesn't have an impact on what we're doing. What has an impact on what we're doing is what we're doing here every single day, about our execution, our physicality, our techniques, our ability to finish plays, and our ability to develop players and get them to believe.
Coach, moving over to coordinator, can you explain a little bit about what the process has been like taking over the unit as a whole?
I know that I'm not around the players as much as I like. One of my favorite things, I am out at practice. I am, obviously. But during the daily, there's a heavy burden of organization, of making sure that we're all aligned based on Coach Rule's message and Coach Rule's desires as far as where he wants our defense heading, planning for walkthroughs, planning for practices, scripting. So that's just a process that's is cumbersome at times, but requires time. So I would say the biggest difference is just the opportunity to get around the players on a daily. But I've got to make that happen more, whether it's me being in meetings when I can be, or me eating with them at meals, interacting with them maybe outside of the football arena on the field. I had C.R. Wright came to me the other day and told me he missed me. I think he was joking, but that was his way of probably busting my chops a little bit about I'm not in his meeting room yelling at him like I was last year, but I made sure that I took it out of him on the field the last couple of days.
How do you think your linebackers are?
I think they're developing. I think they're good. I think they're young. They're getting better. I think the guys we're rotating really, we have a 3 deep right now. Of obviously our oldest players, Javen, but we got some good young players that have juice and have energy and play physical and, getting a lot of reps. So I think that aspect of our team, we have good depth. Rob's doing a good job. We just got to keep grinding.
I know Dawson Merritt, we saw him a little bit. He's a true freshman. It's hard, right, to adjust. But have you seen him develop over the
I think he's made some strides over the last couple of days that have kind of excited us, He's obviously was a highly recruited player that for all the right reasons, because great family, great background, great player. And I think he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable in the system, being out last spring with not really being involved because of the shoulder. I think he's now catching up. But I would say he's a player as well as, a lot of those other guys that we're excited about in that room.
Matt used the phrase on Saturday, competitive stamina, kind of when you get into week 2 and 3 of fall camp. What's your message to your guys sort of in this maybe grind portion of August?
Right. You have to find a way to compete every day. Nothing about what they do out there is easy, right? So it's easy to compete on game days because there's 86,000 people there and, everybody's watching and, obviously have a new opponent, but it's these dog days of training camp where you have to compete every single day to build up that stamina. So you're not just saying, well, I'll wait till game day. It's no different than your techniques. It's no different than your execution of the defense. You have to build that up, build that callus up of contact, build that callus up of competitiveness so that you have more of it than your opponent. I believe that's a thing that we have to keep building and have to keep developing.
That's a big veteran offensive line. How would you characterize those battles between the offensive line and your D line?
I wouldn't disagree with it's not my job to give an evaluation of the offensive line, but I would say that they are big and they're good. And I think that's good for us. Because obviously the better competition you go against at every position across the field, the better your players are going to get. I think that our offensive line does a very good job of working together as a unit, and therefore we have to combat that with how we're, whether we're executing movements, whether we're executing blitzes, whether we're playing base techniques. I think going up against a strong unit like that every day can only improve that competitive stamina you just mentioned, that toughness that we're trying to build, that physicality, because at the end of the day, I think that, if practice is the hardest thing you're doing, when you go into the games, you're going to have, an opportunity for success. So it's great that, I really feel like we're competing at a high level at every position, receivers versus DBs, running backs versus linebackers, O-line versus our front seven. I think that's been a great competitive aspect of our program over the last 8 practices that I think is just going to get us ready for the first game and then every game.
Hey, Coach, how have you seen Coach Williams take over the secondary room and just really be crafting some leaders in that room?
Yeah, I think Addie's very smart. I think one of the best things about Addie is he's, whether it's with me or whether it's Coach Rule, he's whatever the message is, it's I got it, and he understands it, and he then brings it to the players. Very happy with how he's been working with the DBs, him, Coach Snow, Coach DeMichael. They're all doing a great job of, that's a big room. We have 25 guys in there, so we have to kind of break it up. And I work with him a little bit when I can, but not as much as maybe I'd like. But yeah, he's doing a very nice job, very good job. He's a great addition to our staff.
What do you feel best about just overall right now? Is it that competition aspect?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to say what we're doing best, because then that kind of opens the door for maybe they don't think they're doing this well. But I think that we know who we want to be defensively from a culture standpoint. We want to be physical. We want to run to the ball like nobody's ever seen, and we want to make big plays and finish. From an execution standpoint, we've kind of gotten out of the install realm, meaning like you're installing these plays, and when you're installing something, you're still as a player trying to figure it out. Now you're more into, okay, those defenses are installed. Now it's polishing them. It's working on executing them better, playing them with more physicality so they can play faster and they can execute those plays better. I know I heard Dana say like it's about making the routine plays. There's no real magic in football. I'm not going to come up with a defense that nobody can block, because if there was one, every defensive coordinator in the country would run it. So it's really about just working that process, holding the players to the standard, and then building that unit constantly of, just like I talked about the O-line, how well they work together. A great defense collectively as 11 all works together. They know where the strengths and weaknesses of each call are. They play to them, and then they work like hell every day to communicate and work together.
Coach, another one of your newcomers, Nwaneri, comes in with a lot of potential, but also still relatively young. What does he need to work on in this fall camp in order to actually see the field this year?
Williams is going to see the field, so I can tell you that. He's a good player that has a huge upside that just needs to kind of keep working in this grind of this program at Nebraska that is going to fortify him into a grown man on the field and off. So I think that all the accolades that Will has received previous to coming to Nebraska are warranted, but his day-to-day here has, through our strength staff, through our player development staff, through our coaches, has kind of made an impact on him. And I think that if he keeps heading in the right direction, we're going to be excited about what Will continues to be, not what he is now.
Hey, Coach, with a week of practice under your belt, is there an area or areas that you've kind of looked at right away and said, hey, this aspect needs to improve?
I think I'll use the same answer I kind of used when I was asked about what we're doing well. I think it's all like, yes, I do know that. I think, but at the end of the day, like, it's about getting better at every single thing. And then if there's certain things that need more attention, that's all we're going to do. So if it's the run defense on a certain day or a couple sets of days, then we'll make sure during walkthrough and during our extra time we're really hitting that. But what happens is if you overcompensate one for the other, then all that ends up happening, you fix this problem and then another one persists, But, we got to stop the run, we got to affect the quarterback, and we got to take the ball away. And those are all the things every single day that I'm kind of on a broader scope am looking at to make sure our run defense from the fundamentals and the scheme and how we play is where it needs to be. Our ability to affect the quarterback to get him, we have a very good quarterback here and he sees a lot of defense. And so it's good that, we have conversations with him and our offensive staff about what they're seeing. That helps us, helps me. But affecting the quarterback's a huge piece because then when you do that and you stop the run, then you get yourself in position to take the ball away, which is the ultimate neutralizer in football.
Going back to the bowl game through now, what have you kind of seen from Jordan Ochoa?
I think he's getting better. I think he's a player that I guess I would say that when I was coaching the secondary, I really didn't have an idea of who he was. But then when I took over during the bowl practice, I mentioned to Coach Rule and mentioned to Coach Phil Simpson. They're like, oh, this dude, I don't know who he is, but he runs around, he's fast, he's athletic. And, then we put him in the bowl game, because I think that's what happens. Coach Rule talks about it, what gets measured and emphasized, measured and rewarded gets done. So, like, I measured him, like, shit, this guy can run. All right? And we're going to talk about him, that's what we want you to do. And so we put him in the game as a pass rusher with a limited experience. Then after that, we're like, okay, can you evaluate him and can he play a certain position, which I think he's continuing to get better at. So him along with other players at that position, he's definitely a guy that's in the mix for us.